From being a 12-time All-Star to a tragic family murder that changed his life forever, Chris Paul has had quite the journey with the NBA. Let's take a deeper look into his story. Chris Paul, also known as CP3, is one of the greatest point guards of all time. His skill, quickness, court vision, and great defense have made him a regular All-Star. Today, he's one of the most renowned names in the world of basketball. But these achievements didn't come without their challenges. Chris is an undisputed future Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest point guards of all time, but that didn't come without its challenges. Let's take a deeper look into his story. Chris Paul had an active childhood, growing up in Louisville, North Carolina, with his older brother, CJ. His father, Charles Sr., a former athlete himself, taught the two brothers basketball and football and coached them throughout their childhoods. Despite this dedication to sports, Charles Sr. also found time to ensure his sons were well-rounded, often taking the boys to church and instilling important family values in them. The Paul brothers spent their summers working at a service station owned by their grandfather, Nathaniel Jones. Chris attributes many life lessons to his grandfather and fondly remembers him as his best friend. It was clear from an early age that Chris was a natural-born athlete and constantly worked to develop his talents. The brothers also made time for fun activities, like playing basketball in their driveway and tinkering on bicycles at nearby bike shops. Chris eventually discovered he had an affinity for mechanics. He often traded bikes with friends to give them the customizations they needed. Being around basketball his entire life, Chris was a natural on the court and eventually earned himself the nickname CP3, due to all three members of his family sharing the same initials. The hard work Chris put in during his childhood paid off. He ended up being named North Carolina's Mr. Basketball by the Charlotte Observer because of his impressive high school career. However, things took a horrible turn in his life from that point. Chris Paul experienced a horrific tragedy in 2002 when his beloved granddad, Chili, was brutally murdered by 5 teenagers. Chili was a 61-year-old World War II veteran who had raised and supported Chris since infancy. He was beaten up and taped to the carport of his own home before having his mouth gagged with duct tape. The gag in Chili's mouth made it impossible for him to breathe, and he eventually succumbed to his injuries. In response to the tragedy, Chris decided to go ahead and play basketball the day after Chili's funeral, a decision that many of his family members disagreed with. Thinking about honoring Chili in some way, Chris proposed scoring 61 points, one for every year of Chili's life. With his entire extended family in attendance at the game, Chris scored 24 points in the second quarter alone. He missed only 8 out of the 34 shots he took that night, eventually making it to 61 points with 2 minutes remaining. As he went up for a basket and foul shot, he knew that he had a chance to set the single-game high school record for North Carolina, something that would have cemented his place in the state's basketball lore forever. Unfortunately, his free throw attempt was an air ball, and he ended up with 61 points instead. Tears streamed down Chris's face as he headed for the bench. He walked up to his dad, an assistant for West Forsyth, and collapsed into an embrace. Chris knew that there was nothing he could do to make up for what happened to Chili. No Rookie of the Year award or anything would bring him back. But in some way, by continuing to tell his story and sharing it with others, Chris is able to keep Chili alive in his heart. Despite the tragedy, Chris has been able to use his grief and pain as a source of strength and courage to move forward with his life. In this way, he honors Chili's legacy every day. Chris Paul headed off to college with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. After the tragic events of high school and the air ball that denied him the record, he was determined to make an impact at Wake Forest. As soon as he stepped foot onto campus, it was clear that Chris had what it takes to be great, averaging 14.8 points, 5.9 assists, and 2.7 steals per game as a freshman. But the best was yet to come in his sophomore season. He led the Demon Deacons to their first ever #1 ranking in school history. Chris had a knack for clutch moments too, scoring 23 points against Duke and 26 against North Carolina. He was a force to be reckoned with, and at the end of his sophomore season, he earned first-team All-America honors and accolades for being an academic All-American as well. After 2 successful seasons at college, Chris decided to turn pro and declared for the 2005 NBA draft. He was selected by the New Orleans Hornets as the 4th overall pick and started his professional career. Unfortunately, Hurricane Katrina meant that they had to play most of their games in Oklahoma City during his first 2 seasons with the team. Regardless, Chris made a huge impact in his rookie year. He started off his rookie season with a bang, leading all rookies in points, assists, steals, and double-doubles. Not only that, he also set a record by becoming the 2nd rookie ever to lead the league in total steals. His performance earned him the title of NBA Rookie of the Year, almost unanimously. At the 2007 All-Star Weekend, Paul was unstoppable as he set new rookie challenge records with 17 assists and 9 steals. His sophomore season saw him take his game to a whole new level as he increased his scoring and passing averages to 17.3 points and 8.9 assists. It was clear that Chris Paul was destined for greatness. The only thing standing in his way was the injury bug, which caused him to miss some games during this period. But luckily, he was able to come back strong and continue making waves in the league. He was definitely a force to be reckoned with. Chris Paul has been an absolute powerhouse since day one of his NBA career, and from there, it only got better. He increased his averages every single year for the first 5 years of his career, peaking at 22.8 points per game in his 4th season with the New Orleans Hornets. After leaving New Orleans and moving to the LA Clippers, he continued to show his dominance. He also achieved career highs in assists, 11.6 in 2007 to 2008, and steals, 2.8 in 2008 to 2009. It's clear that no matter the circumstance, Chris Paul never stops performing at an elite level. Even when he was traded to the Houston Rockets in 2017, he still managed to average 18.6 points per game. And after 1 season with the Oklahoma City Thunder, he took up his game a notch. And despite his advancing years, Chris Paul is still going strong in the NBA. He's proving that age is just a number, and he can still bring it on the court. In 2021, Paul was named an All-Star for the 10th time in his career, and was also voted to start for Team LeBron at the event. That same year, he also led the Suns to their first division title in 11 years. It's no surprise that Paul is one of the most experienced players in the league. He recently joined John Stockton and Jason Kidd as the only players to reach 11,000 career assists and became the first player with 20,000 points and 11,000 assists. This season, he's already had some impressive performances, including a 17-point and 16-assist outing against the Denver Nuggets on Christmas Day. Chris Paul is certainly making his mark in the NBA and continues to be one of the best players in the league despite his age. He's sure to make many more memories before his career ends. Who knows? Maybe he'll even break some more records in the process. It's certainly going to be a story worth watching. So while Chris's story may have started with tragedy, he's certainly managed to find a way to turn that around. What do you think is next for Chris? See you in the next one.